consultants who bring experience to the pool of us that have not had to participate previously in a transit CEO GM search. So thank you so much, advisors, consultants, for being with us on today. So at this time, we're going to ask to hear from Peter, please. Andrews, Mr. Andrews.
Good morning, Chair Scott and board members. In accordance with the last meeting or the last conversations we had regarding a search firm or finding a search firm to conduct the search, a national search for the GM position that is currently open or interimly being filled by Mr. Greenwood, we reached out, or the staff reached out to the 4 finalists from the last search to ask them if they would submit RFPs that we could review to make a recommendation to this board. And Ms. Jacqueline Holland led that process as she did last time and sent RFPs out to Gilbert Tweed, Heydrich and Struggles, Harvard Group International, and Krautmeyer and Associates. Those are the same 4 finalists from last time. And we received responses from 2 groups, Harvard Group International and Krautmeyer and Associates. And based on those RFPs, Mr. Hunt and Ms. Holland did a review of those and came forth with a proposal. I think at this time, what I can tell you is that Ms. Holland can probably give you more information, but 2 firms just did not have the capacity at this time to respond and handle search, and that's why they didn't submit their RFPs. And then the 2 that did, I think you'll see, based on their proposals, are very qualified. But the recommendation was at this time would be to go with Krauthammer and Associates and engage with them in a professional services contract to move forward with the search. And Mr. Hunt and Ms. Holland can answer any questions about the review or the actual RFPs that I believe all of you have received.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews. Mr. Hunt. I take it everybody has an opportunity to read the summary. And does everyone have a copy? You have a copy of the summary? Great, thank you. And I don't think we need to read it out loud. I think everyone's had an opportunity. So is there anyone with questions?
Question. Remembering the conversation on our first meeting virtually, I think it was Ms. Blakely that brought this up, which is very important. I think that we all remembered Krauthammer as doing a good job the last time when Jeff was chosen, and we went through that process. But we want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence here. Can you just explain a little bit why you think that Krauthammer is superior to Harvard Group? Because I want to make sure that we're not making a decision based on kind of preconceived beliefs. Mm-hmm. But if we do end up with the same one, that's fine. I just want to make sure that we have done everything. So can you kind of
absolutely
put some meat on that bone?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's not a case of both firms are qualified and can do the search. When we were looking at Krauthammer, and please feel free, Ms. Holland, to chime in at any point, interrupt. Their depth of experience in the transit industry is extremely, extremely deep. And when reviewing both of the proposals, I know the speed with which this committee and the greater board wants to move, we just believed that they were going to be a better fit. There were aspects of the Harvard Group's proposal that we really liked in the diversity area and their approach to conducting searches. But the depth of Krauthammer's experience is extremely extensive within our industry specifically. I don't know if you had any other anecdotes.
No, I'm in agreement with Jonathan 100%, and not only Mr. Worthy. I understand with Quatmeyer, they have brought forth some very good candidates to MARTA, but overall in the transit industry, they're just way above.
And it's not just a comparison of them versus Harvard. I mean, it's all four when you look at it objectively. And it's not just the CEO level. They've recruited not only for MARTA, but for many, many transit agencies across the nation, well, North America, below C-level, executive level, AGM level, and have had a high success rate.
Go ahead, Ms. Blakely.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So reading through I'm just going to call them K&A proposal, there was one portion, and unfortunately I didn't highlight it to be able to speak directly to it, but they referenced when selecting candidates that with MARTA's permission, they would look possibly outside of people who had transit experience. Have we had CEOs before with very limited transit experience that proved to be successful?
MARTA has not had a.
Can you repeat that? I'm having a
I'm
little
sorry.
difficulty.
Has MARTA had a CEO that has had limited transit experience with success? I can't speak to our entire near 50 years of history now, but I know in the last 2 decades, everybody's come with transit experience, whether they were outside or they progressed and matured in the role from within MARTA.
I apologize for the interruption, but I want to hear that question, and I couldn't.
I'm sorry.
Oh, so the question was, when I was reading through their proposal, there was a reference to when choosing, selecting candidates, so they would, with MARTA's permission, they would possibly look outside of people with extensive transit experience. And so my question was, have we had successful CEOs in the past who've had limited transit experience? And so my preference would be that they not even explore candidates who don't have transit experience, because honestly, I think that would be a waste of their time.
I would like to speak to that just briefly.
Yes, ma'am.
In the last search for the CEO, when we interviewed, I believe at that time it was 9 companies, and we shortlisted to these 4. A large percentage of those companies said the same thing, that they would also look outside of transit. That was what they were looking at. What was that, 4 years ago? Same situation. So they brought that up the last time we did the search.
And certainly this body can define the parameters of the search, but when we say transit, that could be specifically within our industry, or it could mean folks that have airport experience, because that's transit. The other side, just FAA and FTA. So it can be quite broad, but that they will do exactly whatever we want. But
Any other questions from the committee? I have a question, but I'll save it. Go ahead, please.
I was just going to say that in the last 2 searches, both times we did indicate a willingness to interview candidates from outside of just transit systems, and got people from, and I don't remember specifically, but maybe airline experience, maybe logistics experience. And they were interesting candidates, but both times unanimously the search committee was not interested in shortlisting those people. So if I may, your instinct is exactly where we ended up both times previously. And so I appreciate Krauthammer remembering that we asked them to do that last time, which is I think what they're responding to. But my experience on the 2 prior searches leads me to think that you are absolutely correct with your instinct on this. It is, unless we feel like we are not getting a diverse and good pool of serious transit people and would want to expand for that reason. I'm not sure that the intellectual exercise of seeing what somebody else would bring to the table is worth the time and expense, et cetera. There was another point I wanted to say, but I think that's it for now. I'm sure I'll remember and say something else later. But.
Ms. Abdul Salam?
Thank you. In the previous searches, we had some really, I think, top-notch candidates that applied and just didn't make it to the top itself. Is there a willingness, or is there anything that prohibits from re-interviewing some of those applicants if they were so interested?
And that actually was going to be my other point, is I will say that last time Krauthammer's, the panel of people they gave us, both the bigger pool and then the short list, were people at the very top of the transit industry. I mean, in confidentiality, because obviously we're talking about people who have other jobs, we were talking about people who have ended up at or very near, and you may infer as you wish, the FTA, and other people who were CEOs in other peer organizations. The truth of the matter is, MARTA is a top 10 transit system. Our CEO's position is something that everybody in the industry, absent maybe the New York CEO, will have an interest in and at least take a look at. So, I mean, to Roberta's point, we did have some very good people apply, and it was hard going from kind of the 9 or so down to just a few, 5, so that we didn't trigger the Open Meetings Act or Open Records Act requirement about 3 people. But to my mind, that speaks to the depth of the relationships that Krauthammer brought to the table. I mean, they are the transit search firm for a reason.
Thank you, Mr.
Although,
Durrett.
mileage may vary on that.
Mr. Durrett.
I just wanted to say that having participated in the last 2, I'm completely comfortable accepting the recommendation from staff and going ahead and entering into a contract with Krauthammer to do the work. And for me, the only question is, who's going to be responsible for putting together the details of the scope? So that's where I am. I'm happy to make a motion to enter into agreement with them.
Well, thank you. I have a quick question. And this is not don't take it as a negative question. I appreciate the reference to HDI approach to diversity and inclusion in the recruiting process to be innovative as well as have good recommendations. However, HGI did not present a lot of transit placement experience. So I don't see a reference to KA or Krauthammer and Associates and their ability to also understand how important it is that we have candidates that are diverse as well. So my only hiccup and reservation would be to make sure that they do understand that we are willing and open to candidates of all diversity, period.
Absolutely, Chair Scott. They brought a very diverse panel the last time. Additionally, they did have a diversity and inclusion section in there, but HGI's was just very innovative, and we were just highlighting that. We didn't want to, typically these sorts of reviews, they're like 5, 6, 7, 8 pages, and we really wanted to truncate it down and have a discussion. So apologies for the brevity, but that was the only reason. And we, obviously, this committee would articulate that to them directly.
And
Thank you.
to To add on
Mr.
to-
Durrett's
oh, I'm sorry.
point on the scope, the last time we proposed a scope through chief counsel, and it was presented, approved, and then the chair would sign the contract. So you're going to have direct input on that, sir, or visibility.
And personally, I definitely felt as if though their recommendation of Mr. Parker was a great recommendation. I want to add that. Thank you, Ms. Abdul-Salam.
Yes, I just wanted to ask again, because I didn't hear the answer. Previous candidates for previous positions will be eligible to be looked at again?
Absolutely.
There's
Okay.
nothing in that says that they cannot be.
you.
Absolutely, they can.
Are there any more questions for, are there any more questions for Mr. Andrews' team?
Ms. Scott, I just wanted to point out, you were asking about diversity on the K&A team, or their placement in their RFP. They do point out their last,
Excuse me, these two consultants are speaking and I can't hear. Loudly.
so they've represented 4 public transit agencies in the recent past that have hired female and minority CEOs. So they do bring forward not only internally do they bring forward a panel, but they're going to bring forward a panel of choices that'll meet what Marta's looking for.
Thank you for that explanation.
Madam Chair, if it's appropriate, I will make a motion that we enter into a contract with Krauthammer and Associates.
So moved. Do I have a second? Thank you. Second by Mr. Durrett. All in favor? Now I know how to count. Yes, everyone has raised. Thank you so much. The proposal is accepted and approved.
Does it need to go to the full board for a vote?
Does it, Mr. Andrews? Ms. Sears, does it?
Yes, I think because of the way the structure of the payment will work out, it will probably exceed the ability to do this without going to the board, so we'll make that happen as quickly as possible.
Will it be this afternoon, or will it be?
We won't have the agreement today,
Right,
but if
right.
the board's comfortable with just giving us the authority to enter into an agreement with them, then we'll get something on today if you need it today.
Do we need to put that on the agenda for today? No? Right, but will
We
be
can put it on
prepared?
as for other
Let's put it on
matters.
the agenda
We can do that
To
on-
move
okay,
forward,
great.
yeah.
Yeah.
Can we do that?
Yeah,
I mean, you all would be prepared in case there are any questions
Yes,
or
ma'am.
anything.
okay.
Great. Thank you. This committee is adjourned. Enjoy lunch.
Well, that's fine. It's, no, okay.